I think we're losing this narrative right now that America is not this inherently evil place. Our DNA is a very optimistic, we're going to take a challenge and overcome. We need to do a better job of telling this story. So when we were talking about doing this book, I remember talking to a publisher, and the publisher said, look, Adam, there's only 2 books that sell in this country. The books are either A, Donald Trump is a Russian spy, or B, Hillary Clinton is a Russian spy. Any book outside of that doesn't have an audience. So we're talking about, and we put together a book, America in Perspective, that actually went through our system, through our history, looking at the positive nature of our society. Why are we so crazy to think you can write a book about that right now when everyone is so focused on the partisan extreme fights?
Because I think we need to get away from this partisan side, and we need to get back people understanding why our country is great. I don't even view it, oddly enough, as a political book. Right. I view it as a civics book. Over the last 240 years, put us up against any country out there, whether they were here 500 years before us or not, America's outperformed them. And why is that? Now, I would say, by the way, we have to always remember America's not perfect. That's why that self-healing nature is important. But we can't lose sight of what made us great.
Getting to know your story and hearing, number one, how similar some of the things are that in my life, but in other people I've seen who have built things. But also just this, you have such an incredible global perspective as well. So we talked a little bit about how you're from Nebraska, but you travel all over the world. You've had business deals all over the planet. When you talk to people outside of this country, what do they think about is the strength of the United States in our system?
You know, it's an interesting question because as I'm going to be in London this weekend, and every time I'm outside of the U.S., and the most recent, just 3 months ago for a board meeting, I was in London, and the key question I was being asked is, have you people lost your mind? They look at where we're going and seeing how successful America's been, how important America is on the world stage. And it seems as though we're breaking down all of our fundamental institutions. And they can't figure it out. That's the message I get in Asia. It's a message I get in Europe. Message I get in South America is, what are you doing?
So one of my favorite parts of this book is is a thought that I've had a long time about Argentina. Argentina had the same demographics as the United States. It has timber, it has water. A country like Brazil, timber, water, a great location. And those countries they should be as rich as the United States, but they're not. And when I look at the challenges we've faced, it's the institutions that provided for our prosperity. And if you get rid of those institutions, all the prosperity we have as a country is not guaranteed.
No, that's for sure. And you're absolutely right. Argentina, virtually Xeroxed our Constitution in the late 1800s. And by 1920, they were one of the leading GDP countries on the planet. But as soon as they had an election where they started doing away with the checks and balances of their court system, et cetera, they plateaued off. And I believe they've been bankrupt twice since then and have never achieved what could have been achieved. When you take away the checks and balances and you pander to people to get votes using tax dollars versus creating what America has, which is a meritocracy, and giving people the opportunity to perform, keeping the federal government as limited as possible so it stays out of people's way.
So I want to ask you about the American dream. I mean, when I was growing up, that was always something that was instilled in my family, was this American dream. And I've gone back, and there's been a lot of fun in this book, is to even think, okay, what were my parents trying to teach me about the American dream? And what is my American dream? But what is your American dream?
Well, the American dream, I believe, is just self-determination. It is the freedoms that our Constitution provides us, the equality of opportunity that it provides us, which allows every American to decide what they want to pursue. It doesn't put us in any specific direction. It allows you, if you want to be a musician, if you want to be an artist, you want to be an engineer, then go chase your dream. You want to be an athlete, go chase your dream.
Well, when I talk to people, often when I ask them what their definition of the American dream is, it ends up being about material goods. It's about cars and colleges and all this other stuff. But I think there's a very big difference between the material and then this more cultural. It's because to me, when I define my American dream, it's very similar to what you just said. It's about the ability to chase your dreams, because people who are chasing their dreams always seem to be happier than people who are not. And what is the problem if we tie up the American dream with just material goods? Yeah. I don't think people are coming to this country just so their kids do better. I think they're coming to this country so their kids reach their potential. That's why people will risk their lives to get here. And that is really inspiring. And my concern is if it all becomes about material things, then the government gets empowered to just redistribute material things. And at that point, I don't know if we're so special anymore, if it's just about stuff.
Well, if we turn into a socialist society, which it's hard for me to even fathom that people can say those words, let alone put them on their business card as a politician, but you're absolutely right. We've gotten, it's natural that the success of America has created a certain focus on material things, but it's the wrong focus. It's a great thing. I think we should praise entrepreneurs that do well, or people that are great musicians, or people that are great athletes. But the focus really should be on taking care of your family and having the freedom to raise your family the way you believe they should be raised. That's the key difference. But unfortunately, this focus on materialism has taken people's eye off of our Constitution, off of the basic fundamentals that got us here. And it actually is developed a cancer in our society of people almost wanting America to fail, which I just can't get my mind around.
What I'm hearing is, David, if we focus on these basic fundamentals and values that made the country strong, a byproduct is the prosperity.
That's right.
If you focus on the prosperity, but you get rid of these values, you're going to lose your prosperity.
That's exactly right. The greatness of America is being diminished by folks who want to, unfortunately, only look at problems. And we have problems. I don't disagree. The mistake I don't want us to make is to go to some imaginary thing called socialism, which has never proven to work anywhere. And there are many examples, because we're not happy that we're getting better fast enough.
We're not just talking about politics and society today, but it's the whole breadth. We go back hundreds of years and we look at this system. What is that, the common threads, those common values that stretch across from the very beginning of this country to where we are today that makes this country unique?
I think what makes America unique is, first of all, the fact that our founders set up a constitution that's ours, we the people. And people should not lose sight of that. The Founding Fathers knew specifically what they were getting away from, which was an authoritarian, royal structure, if you will, out of England. But also they'd seen the rest of the world and the dictatorships and the authoritarian governments that were all governed by the elites, however you want to define that. Ours was totally unique in the sense that it's by us. We elect our representatives to this government. But they also separated federal powers and state powers to allow the 50 states today, or the 13 at the time, to have their own uniqueness. We have this patchwork of states that came together with different backgrounds, different thought processes, different culture to some extent. And yet our Constitution, embraces that. And so they enumerated powers to the federal government. Everything else was left to the state. And then they set up checks and balances by having a totally separate court system, administrative and legislative. Those unique things coupled then unleashed human potential and meritocracy, the self-healing nature of this whole structure, and so that's the system. What's unique.
But we go back through history. That system is challenged every generation, it seems, and every generation has come up with their answers as long as they keep that system. And now we are living in yet another era where that entire system is being completely challenged.
Unfortunately, too many people today haven't studied American history and civics. And then you couple that with a movement towards pandering for votes by giving stuff away. That ultimately will be the destruction of our system if we allow that to happen.
Well, one other thing I enjoyed about this book and writing this is some of these stories of people like Robert Smalls and just from our history that haven't really did incredible things, overcame tremendous odds, and just contributed to society in incredible ways, but their stories haven't been told. I'm glad we're kind of lifting those stories up in this.
Yeah, absolutely, and praising success. And we've gotten away from educating our society on the civics, if you will, or I think of it as civics, the founding of our country, why it was done, why our structure is the way it is. I just want people to re-educate themselves on that. I really don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. I want people out there that are asking themselves, why are things so contentious today? Why are we so polarized? If they read this book, I think it'll bring them back to the foundation, which should help move us away from polarization and more towards sticking with what's worked, making it better over time, solving our problems, but doing it on a consensus
And we
basis.
haven't hidden, we've talked about slavery, we've talked about Jim Crow, we've talked about all these major issues. We're not running away and poo-pooing and saying these weren't. We've identified that these are real, there are legacies. But if you focus only on one portion of the legacy and not and that's why I think we called it America in Perspective, is put the whole story together in perspective and what it means for us today who live today and what this is going to mean in the country we're going to leave for our future generations. This is a country that's worth defending, and this is a country that's worth investing your time to improve.
We heal these things. And we've got a lot we can still do, but we've got to bring people together. We've got to agree on a consensus to do it. And if we do that, that meritocracy, that self-determination ability that our founding fathers gave us will continue to create the kind of economic prosperity that America has brought to the whole world.
You're a wonderfully optimistic person. I always whenever I sit down with you, I feel like I could run through a brick wall. Are you optimistic about where our country is headed?
I am, because it's ultimately self-deterministic. But I think if people refocus themselves on why we are where we are, why America is such a great place, I'm very optimistic.